Hello, my name's Elijah Wells, and today's review is Yorgos Lanthimos' new movie, Bugonia. The movie follows Teddy Gatz and Don, who are two conspiracy theories obsessed beekeepers who essentially plan to kidnap the CEO of a very famous pharmaceutical company, but on the idea that the CEO of the pharmaceutical company is in fact an alien. So this is where Emma Stone comes in as Michelle Fuller, as the CEO of the pharmaceutical company, and of course the two men being convinced that she is an alien being hell-bent on destroying Earth. The film's director, Yorgos Lanthimos, is one of the most visually distinctive and the most daring directors to come out of the 2010s, particularly with his breakout hit being The Lobster, which came out in 2015, then my personal introduction to his filmography, and of course his first collaboration with Emma Stone being The Favourite. Of course, he went on a 5-year hiatus, then came roaring back with not just one, not just two, but 3 films in the space of 3 years. The first of them being my favourite of his filmography, being Poor Things. Then, of course, with the anthology movie Kinds of Kindness, which has Jesse Plemons in this movie as well, who also carries on in this movie, being Bugonia, which has only just came out just recently. So, let's do a review of it. Of course, the movie takes a lot more of a metaphorical and allegorical approach on its ideas around like a corporate accountability, and of course like the American healthcare system, but being represented of Michelle being portrayed by Emma Stone, and how she's basically a double-ended sword in this situation, as in she wants to help people, but it's definitely going to cost a lot at the same time. And of course, the culture and the political ideology around conspiracy theories. Particularly that how Jesse Plemons' character just dwells deeper and deeper in these conspiracy theories, as so much so he tries to act all professional when first encountering Michelle, but in the basement. But the more and more the meetings go on, and more it becomes more or less a psychological game of 4D chess. So much so, it's pretty much becoming somewhat of a psychological battleground between the two conspiracy theorists and, of course, the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, who's pretty much been gaslit to believe that she's an alien. I think particularly in this film, more so than ever, maybe with something more than his previous film, Kinds of Kindness, where you can feel Yorgos Lanthimos' absolute disdain for humanity, as in, or at least his very bizarre, really somewhat of a bizarre juxtaposition view of like humanity, particularly of how very disturbing a lot of these scenes can get, like the electric shock therapy being done to a distorted basket case from Green Day, which is again such a disturbing scene that I had to look away just because it was just getting a little too brutal for me. It was probably even more brutal than that electric shock therapy than that scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Like, it was definitely a pretty grim and pretty graphic scene, in my opinion. And of course, it's obviously pretty damning how he pretty much views the human race in the juxtaposition that it's basically about of course, you have to connect it with like aliens and the pharmaceutical company, and of course a lot of conspiracy theories, and of course it's very bizarre yet pretty depressing twist ending, which I don't want to get into a lot more, which even though I did find it a bit too depressing for my liking, it did encapsulate the movie quite well in my opinion. And the movie is of course produced by Ari Aster, who I did a review earlier some months ago with his movie Eddington, but also did Beau is Afraid, and is more well known for his horror stuff like Hereditary and Midsummers. And we'll just say they're both of their really off-kilter energy pretty much bounces off each other. Like, they do have a lot of chemistry. So much so they did that Directors on Directors tour by Vanity like a couple of years ago, actually. I don't know how long ago they did it, but I remember when that came out, I remember watching a little bit of clips on it, but I don't remember watching the whole thing for it. But again, pretty much how a lot of the ideas of how really bizarre, really crude, and pretty disgusting the humanity is, and how they pretty much utilized that from both of their movies, and they came together with Yorgos pretty much calling shots, and pretty much coming as one to be that one, we'll just say, odd creature of the two masters of the more weird cinemas that pretty much emerged out of the 2010s and pretty much grew in the 2020s. And pretty much so, when it does go into much more grotesque territory, like the movie's obviously pretty graphic violence, like some characters commit suicide and quite a lot of bloodshed, and of course there's a police officer supporting character who's very bizarrely very open about his pedophilic past. Like, when I first heard about it, I was like, okay. The more it just keeps going on and on, it just felt really creepy and just really, really grotesque. Just kind of like an Ari Aster and Yorgos Lanthimos joint venture. The cinematography, as usual for a Yorgos Lanthimos movie, is again very gorgeous as well. Definitely a couple of wide-angle shot lens thrown in for good measure and shot on 35mm film. Again, typical of a Yorgos Lanthimos movie. And also the music as well by Jeskin Fredericks. If I mispronounced his name, I do greatly apologise. His music in this movie is very foreboding, in my opinion, and very dominating, and it definitely feels terrifying in many of the instances. Particularly when Michelle gets kidnapped out of a car in a home and pretty much gets knocked out with some spray and all that, and gets transported to the two conspiracists' basement, and how that music just completely blurs out and just pretty much gets under your skin and pretty much makes you very uncomfortable, like very foreboding, like the emotions that it pretty much conjures out of you. I did find the article via World of Real, which pretty much took an interview from Collider, pretty much saying that Yorgos Lanthimos did say in an interview saying that he's going to take a break after this movie, considering, like I said earlier, he's made 3 films in the space of 3 years, being Poor Things, Kinds of Kindness, now Bugonia. Again, I did run this back in my head quite a bit. Like, I came to either some conclusion, like he's possibly running out of energy, or he could be getting too weird, or getting a bit too out there for more contemporary film goers, or probably in my opinion, wanting to avoid like a Taika Waititi, where it just becomes way too repetitive, or just becomes way too like in your face, just constantly wants your attention. Which again, I do applaud directors, particularly Yorgos, who wants to take a break, and I do hope he does come back maybe 5 years later, like he did between Favourite and Poor Things, and come back with yet another masterpiece. The film's performances are, again, incredibly brilliant, as the movie does pretty much focus on the 3 characters, being Michelle Fuller, who's pretty much portrayed by Emma Stone as basically somewhat of a more psychologically corrected person, or just pretty much someone that pretty much goes under the skin of her captors and pretty much picks up of any flaws they have and picks up of any vulnerabilities they have and pretty much spin it against them. Pretty much again of psychological warfare. Of course we have Teddy Gatz being portrayed by Jesse Plemons, and of course the debut of Adrian Delbus playing Don, the mentally ill cousin of Teddy. He already is incredible in this movie. So I'm guessing this is his debut performance, so much so that he doesn't have a Wikipedia page. Like, I'm reading the casting list of Wikipedia, and he is not under a blue lighting whatsoever. Jesse Plemons, who I'm familiar with his work, like Power of the Dog, which I really like, and Civil War, both of them starring his wife Kirsten Dunst. And of course, he did appear in another Yorgos Lanthimos movie, Kinds of Kindness, which again, he played 3 characters in this movie. Again, all of them were great. He pretty much plays a character who thinks he's in control of the situation, but the more the movie progresses on and on, like, he is pretty much more vulnerable, he's more broken, he's pretty much being taken advantage of. Pretty much like a Drake situation, if you come to think of it, when he gets into a diss battle. Although Bugonia is definitely not Yorgos Lanthimos at his strongest suit, particularly there are some scenes I did find to be a bit too grotesque in my opinion, but I definitely found the performances of the trio to be incredible in this movie, the cinematography to be beautiful, the music to be gorgeous as well, and as well the movie as a storyline is pretty darkly comical as well, and definitely has some very interesting allegories of like corporate accountability, the American healthcare, and of course the political and cultural environment around conspiracy theories, which again I found somewhat to be a really fascinating case of a director who always wants to push boundaries, always wants to be daring, and definitely has his own very unique, very visual style, very unique visual style that he has for himself, and so much so that he's basically not just one of the biggest directors that was established out in the 2010s, but he's definitely on a hot streak, a literal hot streak. Even if this was the weakest out of the 3 films he made within the past 3 years, but even though he's now going on to his break now, which again, I do hope he brings back yet another banger at this point. So, for Bugonia, I'm feeling a 7 out of 10 on this one. So, what do you think of Bugonia? Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, and also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, and Letterboxd and Digital Elijah Wells, and bye.